Hi booktube, Aaron here. Hope you're doing very well. Today I'm going to be doing the March of the Mammoths tag by Jim from Books, Reading and Stuff. And I was tagged by Pat from Book Chat with Pat. There are a number of tags going around booktube at the moment that I'd really like to get to, but this one is time sensitive, I suppose, because it's to go along with March of the Mammoths, which is a reading event here on BookTube. It was started by Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse, where you read mammoth books, and in this case, mammoth books are books that are 800 pages or more. So those really big, chunky ones that perhaps you've been putting off for some time. And so this is just a brief look at mammoth books and your relationship to them. I think about this time last year I made a book video called Mammoths and Me, but I don't think I got into necessarily all of the questions here. So let's see how it goes. So the first question is, are you currently reading a mammoth? And I am. So for my pick for March of the Mammoths this year, it's a book I've been putting off for some time, just because there were other big books that I wanted to read before this, and it's the Strudeloff Steps by Hermeto von Dodderer, and it's a big sprawling book about a fairly disparate but interconnected cast of characters in Vienna just before and just after the First World War, and it's looking at how their fortunes have changed. Maybe some of them, fancied each other, and then due to circumstances, have had to marry someone else, and all those kinds of things. And it's okay. It's going quite well. It isn't particularly difficult to read, but you do have to pay attention, mainly because of the number of characters in there. The second question then is, what is the biggest book you have ever read? And I was going to say Les Miserables, like Pat, but I have read something that is a fair bit bigger, and that's Remembrance of Things Past by Marcel Proust. So here's the whole thing, and it is, let's see, I mean, just this first one that has the first couple of volumes in it is about 1,000 pages. The second one is longer, I think, 1,200 pages. And then this one is 1,100 pages. So yeah, about 3,300 pages long. So that's all of Remembrance of Things Past, or In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust, which is amazing, but it takes a lot of time, and you need to be paying attention. And it is one of my favourite books, but yeah, it did take a lot of time. Number 3 is, what is the smallest book you have read? And I'm not entirely sure about this, but I do read occasionally sort of poetry, chapbooks and pamphlets, something like this. This is Brood by Rhian Edwards, which is on the whole all about, also inspired by magpies. I've forgotten the word there. And it's got these lovely illustrations in there, which are by, does it say who the illustrations are by? It doesn't on the cover. Let's have a look. The artwork is by Paul Edwards, and I liked it. And it's got a sequence in there with the nursery rhyme, one for sorrow, two for joy, and so on. And so things like that would sort of fall into the smaller range of what I read. Things like the small little black classics by Penguin, or something like this. This is Mary Ventura and the Ninth Kingdom by Sylvia Plath, which is only about 40 pages long. So all of these fall under 50 pages, and I tend to dip into things like that. Whoops, things falling. I tend to dip into things like that fairly regularly. Number 4 is the size of a book intimidating? And not so much anymore for me. Um, Certainly, a few years ago, a book more than like 600 pages, I would find a little more um, intimidating. And when, particularly, I can remember when starting War and Peace for the first time, I can remember sort of thinking to myself like, "Oh, what am I getting myself into here?" Um, but I would say, yeah, sort of more than not, um, I find bigger mammoth books more inviting than intimidating. Then number 5 is the size of a book a consideration when deciding what to read next? And I was going to answer no, but I think it actually is. It is something I consider, um, because I'm always thinking of other things that I might want to read. And I often have sort of ongoing projects and things like that. So, for example, for March of the Mammoth this year, I picked up, as I said, The Strudeloff Steps by Himeto von Dodderer. However, I was also reading the complete essays of Michel de Montaigne, and I was reading Robert Burton's The Anatomy of Melancholy, both of which are quite chunky. Um, this is about 1,500 pages. The Montaigne is a similar length, I think, maybe a couple of hundred. Yeah, this is about 1,300 pages, so a couple of hundred pages less. But both, significantly sized. And I decided to put these on pause to make room for another mammoth, which is something I think I'll continue to do with those. I'll go through stretches where I concentrate on shorter books, so I can dip in and out of these big books, and then if I want to read another big book, just for my own sort of motivation and stuff, I will intentionally pause these other books, um, just so I can focus a bit more on the big book, not feeling like I have another big book waiting for me, even though it is waiting for me. But I hope that makes sort of some sense. Number 6 is how many pages is the book you are reading right now? The Strudeloff Steps is, including the afterword, 850 pages. So, yeah, just over the limit, the lower limit for what constitutes a mammoth. Number 7 is what is the average length of the books you read? So you've just seen the the upper reaches of page count in what I read with things like Proust and Montaigne and things like that. And then you've seen the lower range with the poetry pamphlets and these shorter, sort of short stories in a single volume, things like that. I think most of the books I read, I mean, sort of looking behind me, I'd say average at around 300 to 400 pages, and I think sort of considering the range in page length, and considering that I read, just because they're shorter, much more shorter books than I do mammoths, even though I love them. It's just a matter of how long it takes to read them, and so it probably would average at somewhere around 300 to 400 pages, I think. Number 8 is, do you think that humans will bring back mammoths from extinction? I wouldn't put I wouldn't put it past us. I mean, we can grow ears on lab rats and things, so I think it would be possible. Number 9 is, do you think they should? And that's a really interesting question as to whether, you know, why did they go extinct? I don't actually know. Was it because of hunting? Was it because of um, of you know, matters of climate and things like that, and not having a habitat that was suitable for them? I'm not sure. They probably were hunted out of extinction, I think, but who knows? Um, I should probably check that. Um, and all of my thinking about that was where, like, how would it benefit the ecology of any particular part of the planet, or would it just be one of many hubristic projects that seem to be up in the air? 'Cause you know that there are all kinds of animals being introduced to areas that either they hadn't been in before or they haven't been in for a long time because of the positive impact they'll have on the ecology of the area. Um, and so that's where the little thing was going in my head, thinking like maybe having mammoths in certain places, you know, maybe that would be cool, maybe that would be helpful. Um, but they're pretty big. Um, I would prefer to see giant deer. I think that would be much cooler. Giant deer rather than mammoths. Number 10 is to tag some people. So I will say I will tag Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics, Debs from Raina Read Stuff, Joe Spivey, and Tilly from Tilly's Shelf. So that was the March of the Mammoths tag, and I hope that was sort of interesting there for you. Thanks again, Jim, for creating the tag, and thank you, Pat, for tagging me. But now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.